A daily dose of practical wit and wisdom with a professional educator and trainer, Amazon best-selling author, United States Marine, television and radio host, Paul G. Markle. Each episode will focus on positive and productive ways to strengthen your mindset and help you improve your relationships, career goals, and overall well-being. Please welcome your host, Paul G. Markle.
Welcome back to Morning Mindset. As we continue with this week, I'm going to discuss a topic that actually was in the show notes for later on, but I decided to move it up because this is the week that we sprang forward, that we changed the clocks, right? And every year, like clockwork, you could set your calendar to it. Every single year when we spring forward, when we go to daylight savings time, what happens? People complain about it. There are newspaper articles written, there are blog posts. You run into people and are like, it's the stupidest thing ever. Why do we keep doing this? And we complain about it as a society. We complain about it for a couple of days. And then we stop talking about it again for 6 months until we fall back. And everybody loves to fall back. Everybody likes that extra hour. So they don't complain about that as much. And then a year later, we'll spring forward again. And people will complain about it again for what? For a couple of days, and then we'll move on with our lives. Now, when I was younger and we would go to church on Sunday mornings, back in the 70s and 80s and so forth, when we would have that spring forward day, because we always spring forward Saturday night to Sunday morning. So come Sunday morning church time, people would be late. There'd be sporadic attendance or late attendance on the Sunday after we sprang forward because people were still an hour behind. Of course, in the fall, people were an hour early. I'm going to talk today about punctuality. Yes, punctuality, because we're talking about time, right? Be where you are supposed to be when you are supposed to be there. And in today's world, that seems almost like a superpower. I was given this piece of advice probably 30 years ago or more when I was a young United States Marine. If you are a student of history, you should know who Admiral Arleigh Burke was. But if you went to public school in the last 20 years, you probably glossed over World War II and don't know any World War II heroes. But Admiral Arleigh Burke was a World War II hero. He was an admiral in charge of the Navy, part of the Navy at least, in the Pacific Theater. And Arleigh Burke had a quote. He had a rule for not only punctuality, but being a professional. And he demanded this of all of his officers and ship's commanders. A fine rule is to get going sooner than anticipated, travel faster than expected, and arrive before you're due. Kind of like, it's adding on to the be where you're supposed to be when you're supposed to be there. Now, if you have ever been in a position where you are a supervisor or a manager, or you have to work with other people or organize or supervise other people, how many of you believe that punctuality, being where you're supposed to be when you're supposed to be there, is a superpower? I know. Now, how about something simple, leave when you're, leave faster, travel faster, get there before you're due. And you're like, I can't do all those things. All right. One of the other rules when I was in the Marine Corps, especially in the infantry, is if you are not 15 minutes early, you are late. And you say, come on, Paul, that doesn't make any sense. If you're supposed to be there at 8 a.m., then be there at 8 a.m. and you're not late and you're good to go. But that's not the way we worked at the Marine Corps, because if we're having formation at 8 a.m., at exactly 0800 and 1 second, that is when the first sergeant will start talking. You don't walk up to formation at 8 a.m. At least you don't walk into formation at 0800 exactly and be a happy camper afterwards. How many of you in your personal life have ever needed to go somewhere, and you needed to go somewhere with a group, with your family or what have you, and you say, all right, I did the math, and in order to get where we're going on time, we need to leave the house no later than 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, whatever it is. Let's just say 8. Stick with 8. So there you are at 8:01, standing, in the front living room, standing by the front door. You've got the keys, you got your jacket on, you're ready to go. And what is everyone else doing? Hang on, I got to get some coffee. I'm turning the coffee pot off. I'll be down in a second. Where's my travel mug? Do you know where my insulated travel mug is? How come it's not in the cupboard? I have to find it. Have you seen my phone charger? I'm looking for my earbuds. I had them on the kitchen table. Now they're not here. Where are my earbuds? So it's not 8 o'clock anymore. Now it's 8:10. Now it's 8:15. At 8:27, everyone's finally in the car. You start the car and you back out of the driveway and begin your trip 27 minutes late. And what kind of a tone does leaving late set for the trip? If you absolutely have to be somewhere, for instance, if the plane is going to take off, whether you're on it or not, you now have to rush, you have to hurry, you have to hope you don't catch traffic, and so on and so forth. If you're expected to be somewhere at a certain time, if people are waiting for you and you show up late, it's not a good thing, right? How many of you know people, or maybe you're that person at work who has the reputation for being reliably unreliable? Yes, reliably unreliable. Now, gut check time, honesty time. Have you ever wondered why you didn't get promoted? Let's say you're working at your job and there's another person, you've both been there at the same time, and a shift supervisor's job comes up and they pick that person and not you, and you get bent out of shape. And you're like, that's bullcrap. We've both been here the same amount of time. We both do the same job. How come they chose that person over me? And I will ask you this, honest self-assessment time. How often are you late? Oh, no, I do my job. Okay, you do your job. How often do you clock in? You're supposed to be there at 07 every morning, and you're clocking in at 07:07, 7 minutes after, 8 minutes after, 10 minutes after, 15 minutes after. You call a supervisor, oh, this problem, this, babysitter, traffic, car, battery, whatever. And you just can't ever seem to get there on time, or you're always barely there on time. You've developed a reputation as a person. If you can't even get yourself there on time, if you can't even supervise yourself to be there on time, how are you going to supervise other people? And this is a very important one, you cannot have a manager or a supervisor that is constantly late when they're going to expect their people to be on time. Let's face it, if you're a young person and you're looking at your supervisor, your manager, your boss person, whatever, and they're always late, and it comes time for you to, either have that extra cup of coffee or, spend more time in front of the mirror or whatever, you're like, my supervisor's always late. Why should I bust my butt to get there on time? It's no big deal. My beloved bride, my beautiful spouse, has been managing and supervising people her entire life. And that is one of the biggest issues or problems that probably any supervisor or manager will tell you today, especially with the new generation, the young generation. They don't understand the concept or the importance of punctuality. My bride, and this is a while back, but she hired a kid, a 19-year-old, out of high school. Technically, according to society, this is an adult human now. She hired this kid, and in the first 5 days of work, he was late 4 times. 4 times in 5 working days. So it came around to week 2, and she called him and said, hey, you don't need to worry about coming into work tomorrow. We're no longer going to require your services. And he was actually shocked. Couldn't believe it. It's like, what? But, and she said to him, out of 5 days, you were late 4 times. And the last day, you were 30 minutes late. And he said, it was only 30 minutes. I don't understand. Obviously, you don't. Obviously, you think the world is here to serve you, and that's the problem with our current generation. They think that the world is here for them, not that they are here for the world, and they don't understand what punctuality means. So if you're working with a young person, you might want to tell them that punctuality is as simple as this. Be where you're supposed to be when you are supposed to be there. It's not that hard. And if you really don't understand, go with the Marine Corps rule of if you're not 15 minutes early, you're late. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, have a fantastic week. I am your host, Paul Markle, and I'll talk to you again real soon.
Thank you for spending time with us today. To get show notes, submit a topic request, and for more from your host, Paul G. Markle, visit morningmindsetpodcast.com. That's morningmindsetpodcast.com. Please leave a review for this podcast on your favorite podcast player. We appreciate your time and effort, and we look forward to reading your honest feedback.